Hello, I am Xarkun. This is World of Warships Legends. Today, I bring you news of the game's next update, which will go live on August 31st, 2020. Now, there's a lot to cover in this update, so let's get going as this rather interesting Les Terribles game plays in the background. I chose it in honor of the French destroyer line coming out of early access and permanently joining the tech tree lineup of free-to-play destroyers in this next update. Now, first up, let's talk about the Veni, Vidi, Vici campaign, which gives the update its name. The campaign will feature 100 milestones to be completed over 5 weeks. If you found yourself having a hard time completing the weekly Havoc missions of recent campaigns in the limited weekly time frame, you'll be happy to know that this time, the weekly missions are cumulative, so they won't reset or disappear each week. This means if you don't acquire all of the renown available in Week 1's weekly Havoc mission, you'll still be able to complete it when Week 2's mission becomes available. At least that's my understanding from reading the patch notes. Keep in mind, though, that shakedown trials will still be blocked, as they have been in the past weekly Havoc missions, by the Endurance Trial chain. Now, the reward for the campaign? How can I not have said that already? Maybe I should have led with it. It's the Tier 7 Premium Italian Battleship Roma. According to the patch notes, her traits include high speed and great maneuverability, making her capable of covering more of the map. She's got 381mm guns mounted on, quote, quickly traversing turrets, end quote, and apparently achieves her best firing accuracy when engaging in combat at ranges inside of 15 kilometers. Finally, she boasts 40% torpedo damage reduction. Now, that sounds pretty strong to me on paper, and of course I will have a first impressions review video covering the ship out as soon as I am able to make one. Moving right on, though, the Italian cruiser tech tree is also coming to early access in this update. Like previous early access updates, tiers 3 through 6 will be available from crates, which can be purchased in the Admiralty section of the store for the special campaign currency. There will also be big containers available, most likely for doubloons, which have a better chance of dropping a ship. The notes hasten to add a caveat, however, which I think applies to both container sizes, but may only apply to the big containers, not entirely sure. The lower the ship's tier, the higher chances of finding her in one of the containers. Not sure if that's just for the big ones or for the small ones that you can get with the campaign currency. We'll see. According to Wargaming, though, these Italian cruisers will offer a great mix of maneuverability and light armor. Higher tier ones will have 203mm guns, and their torpedo armament will be, quote, quite respectable, end quote. However, caution the patch notes, you'll need to be very careful while navigating these buttes, as their armor is reminiscent of their British counterparts. That is, virtually non-existent unless you happen to be the Edinburgh. So, we'll see on that. Sounds like they're going to be lightly armored cruisers. Anyway, I'll list off the Tier 3 through Tier 7 cruisers real quick. Apologies if I butcher any of the pronunciations. Feel free to give me a stern talking to about it in the comments, if I do. So at Tier 3, we've got Alberto di Giussano. At Tier 4, we've got Raimondo Montecuccoli. At Tier 5, the Trento. Tier 6, the Zara. And Tier 7, the Amalfi. But note, of course, that the Amalfi will not be available in early access, as no Tier 7 tech tree ships have been available in early access before. But if you do acquire the Zara from a crate, you will be able to fully grind it and then unlock and purchase the Amalfi as soon as the campaign is over and the next update goes live. Along with the influx of Italian ships, we'll also be seeing some new Italian commanders. Now, I'm not going to list all of them, but some of them have base traits and unique commander skills that I personally find quite intriguing. First up, I would be remiss not to mention the new Italian version of George Dewey. His name is Inigo Campione. Or Inigo Campione. I don't know how you pronounce it. His base trait is called Spartan, and it reduces incoming damage by 0.2% per rank, up to a total of 4% at max rank. That's a fairly meh base trait in my opinion, but we'll see. A far more interesting addition to Legends' roster of Navy commanders, Francesco Mimbelli, a cruiser commander. His base trait, Time to Make a Move, reduces the reload time of the cruiser's guns by 0.3% per rank, up to a total of 6%. That's potentially a very nice inspiration for the already rapidly firing American light cruisers. But what's much more interesting is his unique skill, called I'm Not Insane, which reduces the range of the ship's torpedoes by at least 40%, and probably more as it's upgraded, not sure, but makes the torpedoes anywhere between 2 to 7 knots faster and better concealed by a range of 50 to 200 meters. Now, depending on the base characteristics of Italian cruiser torpedoes, this skill might be quite powerful, or it might be kind of useless. That remains to be seen. Nevertheless, I think it's pretty interesting. Another commander, this one might be suitable for the Roma. His name is Paolo di Revel. His base trait is called Time is of the Essence, which improves the reload of your battleship's main battery by 0.3% per rank, up to a total of 6%. Potentially a nice inspiration for brawling battleship commanders like Ciliax. One of his unique skills, Artisan's Touch, increases the fuse timer for battleship AP shells by 10% or more, and increases their penetration rating from a range of 2% to 10% depending on the rank. This skill improves the battleship's ability to deal damage to other battleships by making shells penetrate deeper into the hulls of enemies before exploding, but it is going to come with the downside of increasing your chance to overpen cruisers, which already happens a lot anyway, so interesting skill to think about and test. But enough about the Italian commanders, because here's where things start to get really spicy. We're getting improvements to all commanders now. That's right, Wargaming is making some much needed changes to the legendary commander skills in this update. All of them, to me, sound absolutely insane, but they come with some major caveats. I'll list all of them for your benefit. Some of them might sound shocking to you at first, but consider the major caveats that accompany them. I will comment on the overall theme of those caveats at the end of this list, but essentially the caveat is this. These new effects work based on your ship's proximity to either friendly or enemy ships. The maximum distances increase depending on the legendary rank. That is, ranks 1 through 4 of the legendary skills. The minimum proximity requirements or whatever, they get larger. So here's a list of the skills and their altered effects. Unstoppable now speeds up damage control party cooldown by 50% when in proximity of an enemy ship. You have to be 3 kilometers for this effect to work at rank 1, 4.5 at rank 2, 6 at rank 3, 7.5 at rank 4. Fully packed now speeds up consumable reload time by 30% when in proximity of an allied ship, 1.5 kilometers to 3.5 kilometer range. Give Me Speed increases the destroyer's max speed by 10% while in proximity of an enemy ship, 3 kilometers to 7.5 kilometers. Rather Be Torching shortens the destroyer's increased detectability time by 30% after firing your main guns when in proximity of allied ships, 1.5 kilometers to 3.5. Refill Station increases the cruiser's max firing range by 10% when in proximity of allied ships, 1.5 to 3.5 kilometers. By the Book reduces incoming fire damage to your cruiser by 20% when in proximity of an allied ship. Farsight reduces incoming torpedo damage to your ship by 30% while in proximity of an allied ship. Running with Scissors increases your battleship's main gun shell damage by 15% when in proximity of an enemy ship. This one will now potentially be quite powerful for brawling battleships, and I might finally equip it to hide. And finally, Smogathon increases your torpedo speed by 10 knots while in proximity of an allied ship. Now, all of these caveats, which have to do with your proximity to either allied or enemy vessels, seem to be designed to alternatively encourage closer team play or more aggressive engagement with the enemy. Whether this will be good for the game and how much utility these new legendary skills will offer remains to be seen, but there is one more change that I know a lot of cruiser players will be thrilled about, and I'm sure some players, particularly those who like to play battleships, will be equally dismayed. Equilibrium of Power, which was a unique skill found only on Kuznetsov and Makarov, will now be moved to the legendary tier and added to some other commanders, namely Norm Scott and Thomas Kincaid. Now, this is the skill that increases HE shell penetration of light cruisers, but it was only available to the Russian cruisers before because it was restricted to Russian commanders. Now, I always found that personally to be somewhat problematic because the Russian cruisers, of course, have like 150mm guns, but so do the American light cruisers, and yet those American light cruisers did not have access to this Equilibrium of Power skill, which definitely gave the Russian cruisers an advantage in terms of HE shell penetration damage. The difference was night and day to me. Lots of shell pens from the Russian cruiser HE, lots of shell shatters from the American ones. Another problematic aspect of Equilibrium of Power, it increases HE shell penetration capabilities, which means the HE shells themselves have a better chance of dealing consistent and regular damage to even some heavily armored targets, but HE shells also light fires. On PC, the commanders enjoy an IFHE skill, which similarly increases HE shell penetration capabilities, but comes at the cost of a decreased chance to start fires. That same trade-off is now being added to Equilibrium of Power in an attempt, I think, to achieve better balance. Now the skill statically reduces the ship's chance of setting fires with HE shells by 2%, which I think means 2% at Legendary Rank 1, and then more than 2% as you rank up the skill with commendations on your commander. Might be wrong about that. I hope I'm not. In any case, this is a significant and very interesting change that I think will be both beneficial and possibly annoying as hell. Alright, next up, the Transformers crossover. Starting on September 18th, we'll be getting some Transformers-inspired ship camos, although the patch notes refer to these as skins. Apparently, they will come with animations that happen both in battle and in port. In addition to these camos, we'll get some Autobots and Decepticons to use as commanders for our warships. And, while I have no interest in these Transformers as such, the new commander options are somewhat intriguing. First up, Optimus Prime for the Iowa. His base trait, called Reconstructor, reduces repair party cooldown by up to 6%, which is fine, but his Revocation Protocol skill shortens the durations for fires on your ship from a range of -5% to -20%, and decreases the spotter plane cooldown from 10% at the low end to 30% at the high end. Possibly a very useful trait for American battleships. Next up, Bumblebee will command the Fletcher. His base trait, Overboost, increases the duration of the engine boost by up to 20%, potentially a strong inspiration for the French destroyers. His unique skill, Calculated Inversion, will drastically improve rudder shift by up to 70% and boost acceleration of the ship by up to 100% when the smoke generator is active. That's the caveat there. But it will make the smoke screen dissipate faster by at least 30%. Potentially something interesting to try with the Fletcher. And apparently this video is going to go a lot longer than I thought, so we're going to have to watch another game play in the background. Anyway, where were we? Okay, Megatron is coming to helm the Bismarck. His base trait, Cyber Tense, increases the battleship's firing range by up to 6%. He will also be equipped with Revocation Protocol, the same skill that Optimus Prime has. It shortens the duration of the fires on your ship and decreases spotter plane cooldown. Finally, Rumble will command the Tashkent. His base trait will certainly be beneficial to that particular destroyer, and you see the Tashkent on screen now. Ha! Almost like I planned this. I didn't. His base skill increases the range of the destroyer's main guns by up to 6%. And his unique skill, Calculated Inversion, also shared by Bumblebee for the Fletcher. That's the one that decreases rudder shift time, boosts acceleration while the smoke generator is active, and makes the smoke screen dissipate faster. So, sounds like a very interesting set of skills, regardless of whether you like the idea of a Transformers crossover or not. And I think, a fair number of people don't. Nevertheless, I'm willing to use these fake commanders on my ships if their skills are interesting, and it sounds like these Transformers are going to have some interesting skills. Alright, we are coming toward the end, though. This update is going to include one major overhaul for camouflages. You will now be able to convert disposable camos into permanent camos by using a new currency called paint. So, the camo collection is about to get a little bit more interesting and slightly more complicated. Few key points to go over here. You'll be able to upgrade the number of disposable camos, you'll be able to upgrade a number of disposable camo sets into permanent camos for a particular ship. That camo will receive what they're now calling a Grade 1 status after the upgrade, which will give its attributes, that is, concealment and incoming dispersion, a 0.5% bonus. You will be able to upgrade the newly created permanent camos to higher grades, which will further improve their concealment and shell dispersion stats. You will be able to create historic camos with paint, though this particular feature will be rolled out in later updates, and the camos will be added on a regular basis. And you will be able to melt disposable camos into paint, which can be used for camo creation and upgrades. Making permanent camos out of disposable ones takes a number of different sets depending on the camo. However, it will always cost the same amount of paint. 150 paint for grade 2, 250 for grade 3, 350 for grade 4. Now, verbatim from the patch notes, quote, "Whenever you buy a camo that you already have, but that's of a different grade, you will be compensated with paint, unless otherwise stated. The amount of paint you'll receive is always based on the lower grade camo, whether you're upgrading or getting a lower grade duplicate from a bundle, for example," end quote. So if that camo stuff sounds somewhat confusing to you, I'm right there with you. I'm not sure I understand that at all, but I'm sure it'll be much easier to understand when it actually comes to the game and we get to see it in front of our very eyes. We're getting near the end here now. We have some miscellaneous improvements. Some of these are really awesome. I don't have time to list all of them, so I'm only going to talk about the ones that I think are interesting. First up, booster flags can now be converted in bulk. Fantastic. This should make my life a lot easier, and I'm sure the lives of some of you a lot easier. Unused personal commendations will now be displayed on commander portraits in the menu. Another nice quality of life improvement. Of course, any unspent Liberty bonds from the Odin campaign will be compensated at a rate of 7,500 credits to 1 Liberty bond, same as in other updates. The artwork for Russian commanders, interestingly enough, except Gurin for some reason, will receive, quote, slight improvements, end quote. And several premium ships will be moved to the ships menu. You know, if you look in the ships menu, you see things like the Warspite and the Dunkirk in there. Some more ships are going to be moving over to that menu for what that's worth. Now, finally, we're coming to the end here. We're going to see some new premium ships. The patch notes do say, however, that there is a 95% chance that all of the following ships will make it into the update, although some may be postponed. They will announce each ship a few days before it becomes available. And the ships are the Tier 4 Italian battleship Giulio Cesare, available for doubloons, the Tier 6 Italian cruiser Duca degli Abruzzi, available for doubloons, the Tier 5 British cruiser London, available for doubloons, and finally the Tier 7 French battleship Gascon, available for 750 global XP. So those of you who are wondering, are we getting a global XP ship? Yes, we are. It's a Tier 7 French battleship. Well, I think that about sums it up. I hope you found this video informative. If you want to take a look at the patch notes for yourself, I should have left a link in the description. And we'll cut to the end result of this battle here with the Tashkent on the screen, which isn't a very high damage game, but was a particularly good one, I think. And the double torping of the, not Asachios, of the Udachis in the beginning, I hope you found that as satisfying as I did, if you were paying attention to it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you like this kind of video and you want me to do patch note updates or patch note readings for future updates. And, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you next time. Goodbye.